And as you can see in the lower zone, the main abundance of species that can be found are those of the algal species. The main algal species come along as Spiratus, which is the member of the brown algae. As you can see of the Limonadititis, it has a solid holdfast to the rock. This makes it an excellent algae for this type of environment, as it will be bashed around and waved by all the waves. It is one of the only kelps which doesn't have a symbiotic relationship with any of the algae. And here we have the most primitive species found on the shoreline from the phylum Porifera, Helicondria palacea, the breadcrumb sponge. These sponges are the most basic and oldest life forms on the planet. And now, as you can see the tides coming in, you can see the algae being submerged in the lower zone. And here we are in the middle zone. As you can see, the abundance of life in the middle zone is that of the algae again. The branching red Carolina algae, and also we have here the Uvula lactuca, the sea lettuce. And also, as in the lower zone, we have the Spiratus algae, which is commonly found from lower up to middle. The most abundant type of animal that is found in the middle zone is the barnacle. This is an animal which is hard journeying. It can survive in the most roughest of weathers and live for 2 to 3 years. And we also have an abundance of the limpets in this area. The limpets will stay on the rock and throughout the tidal season. As soon as the tide comes in, it will move around the loch and start feeding around the area. As the tide exceeds out, it will then move back to the same place which it is at now. The shell of the limpet is perfectly matched to where it sits. This shell will have small little indentations to every single groove on the rock. And here we have the limpet and the crustine Carolina working in a symbiotic relationship. The limpet has the Carolina growing on top of it, and it gets an added protection and camouflage. The snake-locked anemone is so aggressive that not even a crustine Carolina can grow around it. As you can see here, it is just bare rock and small amounts of the crustine Carolina. And here we have the snake-locked anemone has just caught a small shrimp. And now we are going to leave the middle zone and go to the upper zone of the rocky shore. And we'll look at the different species which we can find there. And here we are in the upper zone. In this zone, it is the most extreme part of the shoreline, because as you can see from the rocks, they're not as smooth as they are down in the lower shore due to the waves smashing against them. So the creatures in this part of the area need to adapt to a different style of an environment. Creatures in the upper zone have to adapt to an extreme style of an environment. As you can see, the main abundance of life in this area are the barnacles and also the limpets. They can survive long periods of dehydration and short periods of inundation. there is also an abundance of a type of algae called the lichens. As you can see on the rock here, we have the black lichen. It has a means of sucking itself to the rock so that there is no way that moisture can escape from the animal. The periwinkle does a similar thing, but it has a protected shell laying across the opening to the entrance. How the barnacle survives in this unique environment is by having two shells in front of the entrance which it closes to make an airtight seal to keep the moisture inside itself. Once the tide comes back in, these shells will open up and the barnacle will feed. It means that creatures will survive in the upper zone is by hiding underneath rocks. The temperature underneath a rock could be 3 or 4 degrees cooler than on top of the rock. If I turn the rock over, as you can see, there is an abundance of life. And here we have the splash zone. The most prominent form of life in the splash zone are the lichens. As you can see on the rocks, there is the black lichen as well as the orange lichen. In the splash zone, the action of the waves is much more effective. As you can see, the sandstone rocks have been eroded. The splash zone is the most extreme environment for life to exist. The waves bash the rocks, stripping any life off the rocks. It does, however, deposit a lot of dead algae and other organisms. This is what some of the organisms will then feed on. And here we can see the seaweed that has been left behind by the tide. This is a prime place for organisms to feed. If we turn the algae over, you can see hundreds of different types of species jumping around. These, I'll just try and catch one. Talgus saltador, the sandhopper. This creature eats all the decomposing matter that is found in the upper zone. When it is not on the rocky shore, it lives in the sand. That is how it gets its name, the sandhopper. And here we are in the lower... And here we have the Miguel hissing. The edible periwinkle here, as you can see seen. Oh no, it's a fucking hermit crab.